You think you're being ignored, but you're being felt. You think they don't notice you, but they do, more than you realize. You're not invisible. You're just too deep for shallow eyes, and that's exactly why you're more attractive than you think. Our first sign is people look at you, then look away, quickly. You've seen it before. You walk into a room and someone looks at you, just for a moment, a quick glance, held for half a second, and then they look away like they touched something hot. And maybe you've told yourself, they weren't interested, they didn't notice me. Or worse, maybe I don't matter. But that's not the truth. What actually happened in that moment was something most people don't understand, not even the ones doing it. It wasn't rejection, it was a subtle emotional shock, a reaction to a frequency they didn't expect, a reaction to you. You see, most people are used to certain kinds of energies. They know how to respond to loud people, to the ones who try too hard, to the ones who perform, who beg for validation, who chase attention. Those people are easy to read. They're familiar. They don't scare anyone. But you carry something different. Your presence doesn't scream. It vibrates. It doesn't demand the room. It rearranges it. And the ones around you can feel that, even if they don't understand what it is. Carl Jung spoke about how we react to unconscious forces, energies that bypass our logic and go straight into our emotions. When someone like you walks in, calm, self-possessed, maybe even silent, it disrupts the emotional pattern that people are used to. They glance and their body tenses. They don't know why, but something about you feels too much. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because you're doing something rare. You're simply being real. And realness in a world addicted to filters, to acting, to pretending, feels like a spiritual interruption. Their eyes shift away, not because you're forgettable, but because looking at you too long would require honesty. Honesty about what they feel, honesty about who they are, and honesty about what's missing in their own lives. Some people get anxious, some feel judged, some get fascinated, but scared, because you carry the kind of energy that doesn't just exist, it reflects. You walk into a space, and without trying, you hold up a mirror, not physically, energetically. And when people aren't ready to see their own reflection, they look away. So the next time someone gives you that quick stare, that half-second scan followed by a strange awkwardness, don't shrink. Don't doubt your worth. Don't think you're invisible. Understand this. Your presence was felt so deeply, so suddenly, that their body couldn't handle it. You didn't get ignored. You got felt too much. And that's not disinterest. That's what true silent attraction actually looks like. When someone's soul glitches around your presence, you don't need to try harder. You don't need to change anything. You just need to understand. You're not being overlooked. You're being unreadable. And for people addicted to surface-level comfort, unreadable often feels like danger. But for the ones who are ready for depth, for truth, for connection that reaches below the skin, that same glance that once turned away will turn toward you and stay. Because the light in you, it's not ordinary, it's soul light, and only the awake can look directly at it. Our second sign is you trigger sudden laughter, nervousness, or silence. Have you ever noticed this strange pattern? You sit next to someone, and suddenly they start acting different. They talk too much, or not at all. They start laughing at things that aren't even funny. Their body fidgets, their voice cracks. They avoid eye contact or stare at you a little too long. And in your mind, you might wonder, did I do something wrong? Am I making them uncomfortable? Is there something weird about me? But what if the truth is the opposite? What if the way they're reacting isn't about something wrong with you, but something powerful in you? Carl Jung believed that people don't just respond to what they see in others. They respond to what they feel but can't explain. Your presence awakens something deeper, something hidden inside them. That nervous laughter, that awkward silence, that shift in body language. It's not you, it's what you bring out in them. See, most people walk through life hiding behind layers. They've built walls made of insecurity, doubt, fear, and past pain. They've learned how to be socially normal, how to smile without feeling, how to talk without truth, how to exist without being fully present. And then you enter the room. You, with your calm presence. You, with your still energy that doesn't demand but reveals. You, who doesn't try to impress, yet somehow makes people feel seen. And that's when it happens. They start glitching. They don't know why, but their body reacts. Because when someone real walks in, when someone carries truth in their silence, when someone doesn't need to be loud to be powerful, it disrupts the performance everyone else has been acting in. Your presence becomes a mirror. It doesn't judge, but it reflects. And most people aren't used to that. That's why they fumble their words. That's why they laugh nervously. That's why they suddenly don't know what to say. Not because you're intimidating in the typical sense, but because you're unfiltered energy. You're real, you're awake, and their subconscious feels it instantly. Think about it. Have you ever had someone talk to you, and halfway through the conversation, their tone shifts, their words get jumbled, they start acting out of character? That's not randomness. That's the energy shift you caused. And here's the deeper truth Jung would whisper to you. When someone carries unconscious weight, and they stand next to someone carrying conscious presence, something has to react. So don't take it personally when they act weird. Don't shrink when they get awkward. Don't change who you are because others start stuttering around your silence. You're not the problem. You're the trigger. You bring things to the surface just by existing honestly. You don't even try, it just happens. Because some people were never taught how to handle someone who doesn't need to perform, someone who doesn't fill silence with noise, someone who just is, steady, still, deep. And in that moment, they don't know whether to laugh, cry, open up, or run. But the ones who are ready for something deeper, they won't get nervous. They'll get curious. They'll feel something ancient in you. And instead of glitching, they'll awaken. Because what you carry isn't just attractive, it's activating. Our third sign is people either overshare with you or avoid you entirely. You might have wondered this about yourself before. Why do people either open up to you way too fast or avoid you altogether as if you carry some kind of emotional spotlight? There's rarely an in-between. With some people, within 5 minutes, they're telling you about their childhood wounds, their broken relationships, their dreams, their traumas, their darkest nights. And you're left sitting there, wondering, why me? Why do people treat me like a confession booth? And then there are others, people who seem distant, uncomfortable, almost nervous around you. They keep conversations shallow. They never really let you in, or worse, they vanish without explanation. At first, it's confusing. It almost feels personal, but it's not. This isn't about what you say. It's about what your presence activates. Carl Jung believed that every human carries an unconscious self, a hidden realm full of memories, feelings, secrets, fears. And when you walk into a space, you don't just bring your body, you bring your energy. And for some people, that energy feels like a safe space, like a mirror, like a light in the dark. It gives them permission to be real, to let their walls fall, to say the things they've been holding inside for years. So they overshare, not because you asked, but because they felt you. They felt your calm, your depth, your honesty, your ability to listen without judgment. It was like their souls saw your soul and said, finally, someone who won't run from my truth. But for others, that same energy feels threatening, too intense, too pure, too confronting, because they're not ready to be seen. They've hidden behind masks for so long that standing in front of someone authentic feels like standing in front of the sun, blinding, exposing, vulnerable, and so they pull away. They ghost. They keep things surface level, not because they hate you, but because they're afraid of what they might reveal in your presence. You didn't scare them. Their own truth did. And you were the one holding the mirror. This is what it means to carry soul depth. It means your presence acts like a filter. The ones who are fake, run. The ones who are broken, confess. And the ones who are healing, stay. That's a gift, but it can feel lonely. Because the truth is, not everyone is ready for someone like you. You don't offer distraction, you offer reflection. You don't entertain, you awaken. And that kind of presence, it doesn't attract the masses, it attracts the few who are ready. So if you've ever wondered why people either pour their hearts into your hands or leave you confused by their silence, it's not your personality, it's your frequency. You carry something ancient, something that remembers truth in a world that's forgotten it. And some souls aren't ready for that yet. But the ones who are, they won't just talk to you. They'll connect with you like they've known you for lifetimes. Because you weren't made to be understood by everyone. You were made to be a mirror for the ones ready to see themselves. Our fourth sign is, you're misunderstood in the beginning, then deeply respected later. You've likely experienced this more than once in your life. You meet someone, you sit in a group, you walk into a new space, and immediately, something feels off. You can sense it in the way people look at you but don't approach, in how they speak to everyone but you, in the assumptions they make about who you are. Without knowing your story, they label you as cold, distant, too serious, maybe even arrogant. But you know the truth. You're just quiet. You're just observing. You're just not the type to reveal everything in the first 5 minutes. And in this loud, performative world, that silence, that stillness, gets misunderstood fast. See, Carl Jung spoke often about the persona, the mask we wear to survive in society. Most people are used to those masks, the ones who overshare, overperform, the ones who seek validation like oxygen. But you move differently. You don't chase being liked. You don't reveal yourself unless it feels safe. You don't try to fit in. You feel your way through a room first. And because you don't immediately make yourself soft and accessible, some people assume the worst. They think you're uninterested. They think you're judging them. They think you're too good to speak, but they don't realize you're simply real. And realness takes time to be seen. You're not a quick read. You're not a surface-level experience. You're the kind of person that people understand slowly. And this is where the beauty lies. The same people who misunderstood you at first are often the ones who come back later, not just to apologize, but to admire you, because once they take the time to see you, without assumptions, without projections, they realize that you are kind, not cold, deep, not distant, focused, not arrogant. They realize that your silence wasn't rudeness, it was wisdom. Your stillness wasn't indifference, it was self-control. Your mystery wasn't manipulation, it was protection. You were guarding your space. You were scanning the energy. You were choosing who deserved access to your truth. Because once you open up, you don't do it halfway. You give your time, you give your heart, you give your mind. And that level of depth requires discernment. Jung would say, the deeper the waters of the soul, the quieter its surface. That's you. You don't show off. You don't need applause. You move from the soul, not from the ego. And the more emotionally aware someone is, the more they'll begin to notice the layers in you, the strength behind your silence, the loyalty behind your caution, the softness behind your still face. You weren't made to be instantly loved. You were made to be slowly understood and eternally respected. So if you've ever felt like the outcast at first, like people just don't get you, be patient, because the ones who stay long enough to look deeper, they don't just like you, they value you, they learn from you, they respect you in ways others never will. Because you didn't demand their attention, you earned their understanding. And that kind of attraction, it doesn't fade. It grows stronger the more they see who you really are. Our fifth sign is you're remembered, even by people who barely knew you. Some people need to talk constantly to be remembered. Some need to perform, to impress, to exaggerate their presence just to be noticed. But you've had people remember you, even when you said almost nothing. You've had strangers look at you once and never forget you. You've had people come back months, even years later, saying, I don't know why, but I always remembered you. And you didn't do anything special. You were just there. Quiet, observing, still. So what is it? Why do people carry your energy long after you've left? Because your presence doesn't just pass through the air, it enters their psyche. Carl Jung once said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. And that's what you do. You transform the space you're in, not with noise, not with flash, but with energetic memory. Your aura holds weight. It has shape, texture, silence, and warmth, even when you're not trying to show it. People don't remember your clothes. They don't remember your voice. They remember how they felt when they stood next to you. And that feeling, it lingers. Sometimes they'll remember your stillness, the calm you carried while everyone else rushed. Sometimes it's your depth, the way your eyes held a story they couldn't decode, or your silence, the rare kind that felt safe, not awkward. Or your honesty, how you said so little, but every word felt alive. You didn't enter their memory because you demanded space. You entered it because you brought truth into it. And truth leaves a scar, a beautiful one. Even people who only met you once may find themselves thinking about you randomly, wondering who you really were. What was behind that calm face? What made you different? It's like your spirit brushed against theirs and left fingerprints on their soul. But here's what's wild. They may never tell you. They may move on, live their lives, smile at others. But your energy stays lodged in their subconscious like a soft echo. Because the universe is loud, but you were a rare moment of quiet clarity. You didn't come to impress them. You came to remind them, even for a moment, what it feels like to be near something real. And that kind of presence is unforgettable. Jung would say you're an archetype, something ancient, familiar, and symbolic. You awaken something people can't name, but feel. And when they try to explain it later, they can't. So they just say, there was something about them. I don't know what it was, but I felt it. That's not coincidence. That's spiritual signature. Your soul doesn't walk into rooms. It leaves echoes behind in them. You don't just pass through people. You imprint. And it's not because you're trying to be different. It's because you carry something the world forgot how to see. And when someone catches a glimpse of it, even for a moment, they don't forget, not ever. Our sixth sign is you unintentionally spark competition or jealousy. You didn't come to compete. You didn't enter the room trying to be better than anyone. You weren't flexing, performing, or seeking praise. But suddenly, someone's energy shifts. The mood tightens. The compliments become backhanded. The smiles become strained. And you don't even know why. You weren't trying to be a threat, but somehow you became one. And this is the part that used to confuse you. You were kind. You were quiet. You were humble. But even that, especially that, triggered something in them. And you began to realize something painful. You don't have to do anything wrong to become a target. You just have to be real in a world full of masks. Carl Jung explained this clearly. Jealousy and competition are rarely about the other person. They are reflections of a battle within the self. When someone meets you and they sense something in you that they're missing in themselves, they feel it instantly. They may not even know what it is, but something about your peace, your confidence, your independence, agitates the parts of them they've been hiding. You didn't brag, but your quiet self-worth was loud enough to trigger their doubt. You didn't show off, but your presence reminded them of how unrooted they feel inside. You didn't compete, but you became the mirror that made them feel behind. That's not ego, that's energy. See, you carry something they can't fake. A calmness that wasn't bought, a depth that wasn't copied, a confidence that wasn't loud, but solid. And that kind of presence, it shakes people. Some will admire you. They'll respect your strength. They'll want to learn from it. But others, especially the ones who haven't done their inner work, will try to bring you down just to feel taller. They'll compete with you even when you're not playing a game. They'll try to outshine you, outtalk you, outdo you. Not because they're bad, but because something in your presence made them feel small. And instead of healing that wound, they'll try to dim your light. But let me tell you something important. It's not your job to shrink for people who feel insecure around your power. It's not your responsibility to make others comfortable by becoming less of yourself. And it's never your role to apologize for the strength you've earned through pain. Jung would say, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. So if your light is irritating them, it means you're exposing something unhealed. It means your existence alone is a lesson they weren't ready to face. You didn't ask to be their trigger, but sometimes being who you are, just being fully, quietly, completely you, is enough to send shockwaves into someone else's shadow. And that's not your fault, that's your frequency. You carry something real. You move like someone who's been through fire, but came out shining. You carry scars, but with grace. You've been broken, but never bitter. And all of that, the resilience, the softness, the silence, the wisdom, it adds up to something people can't always handle. But here's the truth. The ones who try to compete with you, they're just trying to understand you. The ones who envy you, they're just trying to find what you already have inside yourself. And the ones who try to pull you down, they saw your wings and realized they never grew their own. Our seventh sign is people assume you're taken or too good to approach. It's strange, isn't it? You walk into a room, you feel eyes on you. There's energy, curiosity. You can feel it. People notice you, but no one approaches. No one says what they're thinking. No one takes the chance to really come closer. And deep down, you wonder why. You ask yourself, am I unapproachable? Do I look mean? too serious, intimidating. But here's the truth that no one has probably told you before. It's not that you're unapproachable. It's that you carry yourself like someone who knows their value. And that kind of quiet confidence, it's misread more often than it's understood. You see, when someone walks around needing attention, people know how to handle that. They know how to flirt with desperation. They know how to respond to performance. But when someone walks into a room and doesn't chase anyone, when someone doesn't beg to be seen, doesn't compete, doesn't try to impress, that energy confuses people. It's like walking past a palace and assuming it must already be owned. Why? Because something that valuable couldn't possibly be available, right? That's what happens with you. You don't try to convince others of your worth. You carry it in your posture, in your silence, in your eyes. And people feel that. They may not even understand it, but they feel it. Carl Jung said that our unconscious impressions of others are often shaped by archetypes. Symbolic roles we project onto people based on their energy. And when you walk in with groundedness, you get labeled unconsciously as the chosen one, the taken one, the out-of-my-league one, even if you're single, even if you're the most open-hearted person in the room. It doesn't matter, because your energy already told the story, and people believed it without asking for the truth. They assumed you must belong to someone already, because surely someone like you couldn't be alone. But what they didn't realize is, you've simply learned how to belong to yourself first. And that self-belonging, that quiet strength, that sense of not chasing, that's rare. And rare things intimidate those who haven't found that within themselves. It's easier for them to admire you from afar than to risk approaching you and being rejected. It's safer to assume you're taken than to find out that maybe, just maybe, you were open to connection. But here's what's important. Don't dim that energy. Don't try to look less confident just to seem more approachable. Don't soften your truth to make others feel more comfortable around your power, because the people meant for you, the ones with courage, clarity, and emotional maturity, they won't assume. They'll see your worth and still walk toward it. They'll recognize your power and still choose to reach for it. Because while some people only know how to love the loud, there are others, rare souls, who will be drawn to your silence like a magnet. They won't be afraid. They'll be curious. And they won't run from your depth. They'll dive into it. So if you've been overlooked, misread, misunderstood, it's not because you were too much. It's because you were too real for people still performing. And when the right person meets your energy, they won't assume it's taken. They'll recognize it as sacred, and they'll approach with reverence. Our 8th sign is you don't force connection, but it happens anyway. You weren't trying to be noticed. You didn't walk into that room with a plan to impress. You weren't performing, exaggerating, or forcing charm. You weren't smiling to be liked. You were just being you, present, calm, grounded, quiet, and somehow, it still happened. Someone kept glancing at you. Someone leaned in your direction. Someone remembered you, even when you forgot the whole moment. You've probably experienced this more than once. A stranger says they felt something around you. A co-worker tells you they always felt drawn to you but didn't know why. Someone you barely spoke to admits they felt connected, like you just got them. And you're left wondering, how? I didn't even try. But that's the point. You didn't try. You didn't manipulate the moment. You didn't force chemistry. You didn't fake laughter or rehearse your words. You simply existed in truth. And truth, real, grounded, calm presence, creates gravity. Carl Jung would say this happens when the authentic self begins to shine through the layers of the conditioned mind. Most people wear masks. Most people are guarded. Most people are not really there. They're too busy trying to be liked, to be wanted, to be accepted. But you've outgrown that. You've become comfortable in your own silence. You've stopped chasing. You've let go of the need to constantly explain yourself. And ironically, that's what pulls people in. Because real connection doesn't come from performance. It comes from resonance. There is something about your energy that speaks directly to people's subconscious. It doesn't go through logic. It bypasses the surface and whispers to the soul. It says, here is someone safe. Here is someone real. Here is someone I can breathe around. And for many people, that kind of presence is rare. So rare, it feels like falling in love with silence, with safety, with stillness. And it's not always romantic. Sometimes it's a friend, a stranger, a mentor, a soul who simply felt seen by you, without effort, without force. They connected to something you weren't even trying to show, your essence. That's the deepest kind of attraction, the kind that doesn't need words, the kind that happens in the pauses, in the eye contact, in the way your energy doesn't demand, but it invites. You don't entertain, you don't chase, you don't hook people with tricks, you just exist in alignment, and that alignment creates invisible threads. Threads that tie into hearts quietly, threads that make people remember you without knowing why. Threads that make people feel like they knew you before they met you. That's not coincidence. That's your energy doing the speaking. That's your soul doing the connecting. And here's what you need to understand. You don't need to try harder to be magnetic. You don't need louder words, flashier clothes, or bigger gestures. Your real power is in the stillness you carry when you stop trying. Because connection isn't created through effort. It's revealed through alignment. And when you align with your truth, the right people don't just find you, they feel you, and they stay. Our 9th sign is people project onto you because they can't read you. You've probably felt this one before. Someone treats you strangely and you don't know why. You sense they've made up a story about you and you wonder, did I say something wrong? Did I do something to make them uncomfortable? Why are they assuming things that don't feel true? But here's the reality. You didn't say much. You didn't give them a clear label. You didn't offer the usual surface-level script most people expect. And that's exactly what made them start projecting. Carl Jung taught that when people can't fully understand someone, they don't usually ask deeper questions. They fill in the blanks with their own fears, insecurities, or fantasies. Because here's what happens. You enter a space with a presence that doesn't explain itself. You're not performing. You're not giving away all your thoughts. You're just there, calm, composed, unbothered. And in a world where most people are loudly trying to be understood, your mystery becomes uncomfortable. They don't know how to place you. You're too soft to be rude, too deep to be passive, too calm to be chaotic, too quiet to be weak, too present to be forgotten. So instead of seeing you clearly, they project their own emotions onto you. If someone's insecure, they may assume you think you're better than them. If someone's been betrayed, they may think you're hiding something just because you're private. If someone is emotionally immature, they may think your silence is judgment, not protection. They don't realize that their reaction isn't based on who you are. It's based on who they are when they're around you. Your energy becomes a mirror. And mirrors don't lie. Some people aren't ready to see their own reflection, so they blame you for what they see. They might say you're cold, distant, complicated, even dangerous. But the truth is, they just don't know how to read someone who isn't acting. You don't fit into the boxes they're used to. You don't give them the labels they want. You don't make yourself small just so they feel big. And that lack of clarity, that refusal to perform, creates emotional friction in people who are still trying to decode themselves. And here's the wild part. You've probably been misunderstood the most by people who never really knew you, because your presence activated something internal, something they didn't want to face. You reminded them of a memory, a wound, a desire, a fear, a truth they haven't made peace with yet. You became a symbol, not a person, a projection screen, not a real connection. And they didn't see you. They saw the version of you their own shadow created. But here's the beauty in this. It means you carry depth. You're not flat. You're not easy to decode. You're not loud enough to be dismissed or fake enough to be figured out. You're complex, not because you're trying to be, but because you're real in a world that's conditioned to understand only masks. Jung would tell you this isn't a flaw. It's a sign that you've transcended surface identity. You've become someone who awakens parts of people they didn't even know were asleep. And sometimes people don't like that awakening. So instead of doing the inner work, they blame the trigger, which was you. So if you've been misread, if people assumed things about you that felt unfair, if you've been made the villain in someone's story when all you did was exist quietly, know this: you didn't fail to explain yourself. They failed to look beyond their own lens. You don't need to be less mysterious to be more accepted. You don't need to unpack your soul just to make people feel secure. Because the people who are ready for your energy, they won't project, they'll perceive. They won't label you, they'll learn you. And instead of being scared of your silence, they'll feel safe in it. Our 10th sign is children, animals, or emotionally intuitive people gravitate toward you. There's something you may not have noticed, or maybe you noticed but never understood why. Children seem to stare at you. Sometimes they follow you with their eyes. Sometimes they randomly smile at you or come closer without hesitation. Stray cats or dogs pass others but pause near you. Birds don't fly away too quickly when you're around. Even animals you've never met seem calm, even curious, in your presence. And then there are the people. Not just anyone, but the intuitive ones, the quiet ones, the healers, the feelers, the ones who can sense what others cannot. They connect with you instantly. They say things like, "I feel peace around you." There's something grounding about your energy. "I don't know why, but I feel safe with you." And you've probably wondered, what is it about me? I'm not doing anything special. But that's exactly it. You're not doing anything. You're just being, and your beingness carries truth. Carl Jung often spoke about the unconscious communication that happens between living beings, the energy beneath the words, the emotional language beyond logic. Children feel it because they haven't been conditioned to ignore it. Animals feel it because they never lost that connection to the unseen. And emotionally intuitive souls, they've returned to it after years of shedding everything fake. These beings aren't drawn to your looks, they're drawn to your frequency, to your calm, to your stillness, to the way your energy doesn't demand, it welcomes, to the way your eyes carry both pain and peace. A quiet story that says, "I've been through the fire, but I still believe in softness." You've likely walked through storms silently. You've likely held your tongue when others lashed out. You've probably been misunderstood, overlooked, or misread, but you never let that poison your spirit. And that silent resilience, it doesn't go unnoticed by souls who feel instead of judge. Children trust it, animals rest in it, intuitive hearts recognize it, because you don't carry chaos. You don't carry deceit, you carry presence, you carry truth. You don't even need to speak for someone to feel your safety. Your presence alone says, "I'm not here to take, I'm not here to control, I'm just here, fully, gently, honestly." And in a world where so many people walk around emotionally disconnected, where even adults wear masks so tight they forget who they are underneath, you are a rare kind of person, someone whose energy feels like home. Not because you're perfect, but because you're authentic. You've cleaned your spirit of pretense. You've softened through struggle. You've turned your pain into presence. And that transformation, invisible to many, is loud to the ones who still feel. Jung would say you've integrated the shadow. You've befriended the silence inside yourself. And in doing so, you've become someone who doesn't just appear safe. You are safe, spiritually, emotionally, energetically. So don't be surprised when the little boy in the grocery store won't stop looking at you, when a cat crosses the street, sits near you and doesn't flinch, when a stranger opens their heart without knowing why. That's not random, that's recognition. It's the soul remembering a vibration it can trust. And you didn't learn that from a book. You became that, through experience, through heartbreak, through healing. So next time it happens, don't brush it off. Don't shrink or question it. Smile, and remember, you're not attracting attention. You're attracting alignment. You're not being seen. You're being felt, and only by those whose hearts are still open enough to feel something real. Our 11th sign is your absence is felt stronger than your presence. You've probably never thought much about it. You leave a room, you end a conversation, you step back from a friendship, and nothing dramatic happens. No loud goodbye, no applause, no final words, but then something strange unfolds. Time passes, and people begin to notice something missing. Not immediately, but slowly, subtly. It hits them, a shift in the energy, a strange silence where there used to be warmth, a stillness where there used to be presence. And that's when it dawns on them. You were the one holding it all together, quietly, softly, without needing credit. You didn't take up space in a loud way. You weren't the loudest voice. You weren't the one constantly trying to be seen. But your presence was the anchor, the invisible glue, the gentle weight that made everything feel stable. Carl Jung would say that people often don't recognize the soul's influence until it's removed, because your energy wasn't just felt, it was woven into their experience, woven into their sense of peace, into their rhythm, into the safety of being around someone who didn't take, but gave. You gave calm, you gave grounding, you gave presence. And when you left, they felt the difference. Not in the noise, but in the vibration. Suddenly, conversations didn't feel as real. The room didn't feel as warm. The group didn't feel as connected, because the person who never demanded attention was actually the one holding the emotional atmosphere. And this is what you need to understand. Some people will only realize your value after you're gone, not because they didn't appreciate you, but because your presence was too consistent to be questioned. You were the one who stayed calm during chaos, the one who listened more than you spoke, the one who offered silent support that made people feel stronger, even if they never said thank you. And when that kind of energy leaves, it creates an echo, a soft void that no one else can fill, because your presence wasn't loud, it was deep, it wasn't flashy, it was felt. It didn't need recognition, it created balance. Jung would call this the numinous effect, the quiet spiritual weight certain souls carry, the kind that shifts an entire space, not by acting, but by simply being. So if you've ever walked away from a relationship, a room, or a season of life, and people reached out later saying, "I didn't realize how much you meant to me. I feel like something's missing. I miss your energy." That's not just nostalgia. That's your spiritual fingerprint, still lingering. You were never just someone. You were the one who made people feel safe to be themselves, the one who made everything feel more grounded, more sacred, more peaceful. So don't be discouraged if you weren't always celebrated while you were present. Some people aren't emotionally awake enough to feel the depth of what they have until it's no longer around, and your absence, it teaches more than your words ever could. It whispers, "You didn't lose me. You lost the version of peace that only I could offer." Because people forget the candlelight until the room goes dark. They forget the anchor until the storm hits. They forget the soul who made them feel whole until they feel hollow. But you never needed to be loud to be unforgettable, because some energies aren't noticed in the moment. They are felt in the silence that follows. Our 12th sign is you're attracted to depth, not applause, and that confuses people. There's something different about the way you connect. You're not drawn to popularity. You don't chase loud voices. You don't care who gets the most likes or who shines on the surface, because applause has never impressed you. What moves you is depth. You're not looking for glitter, you're looking for gold. And gold takes time to find. It hides beneath layers. It requires silence, presence, soul vision. Carl Jung said that the deeper you go within yourself, the less interested you become in shallow noise. And that's you. You've outgrown the need to be constantly seen. You no longer care to be the center of attention. You don't need everyone to like you. You just want something real. While the world around you worships the stage, you're sitting in the back row, observing, watching who's genuine, who's masking pain with performance, who's seeking validation instead of truth. And that awareness, that soul maturity, makes you stand out. But here's the strange part. Because you don't chase applause, because you don't constantly talk about yourself, because you don't try to prove anything, people don't know how to read you. They can't label you easily. They can't place you in a box. And when people can't label you, they get uncomfortable. You confuse them because your validation doesn't come from attention. It comes from alignment. You're not trying to be liked. You're trying to be true. That's rare. That's powerful. And it's misunderstood by those who still think loudness equals value. See, when most people think of attractive, they picture performance, big smiles, big gestures, loud energy. But you've learned that true beauty lives beneath the surface, in quiet loyalty, in eye contact that doesn't flinch, in the softness of someone who's been through storms but still chooses peace. You're not impressed by the number of people someone can entertain. You're drawn to the one person who can sit in silence and still feel full. Because applause fades, attention shifts, but truth holds, truth roots, truth lasts. And the same way you seek it in others, you carry it within yourself. That's why you don't perform. You don't fake energy. You don't smile when your heart is tired. You don't flatter for acceptance. You don't rush connection. You'd rather have one soul-deep conversation than 1,000 surface compliments. You'd rather be alone than surrounded by empty noise. And yes, it confuses people. It makes some think you're distant, cold, arrogant even. But that's only because they've never met someone who's no longer trying to be seen, because they've already seen themselves. Carl Jung would say you've integrated your shadow. You've met the parts of yourself that most people are still running from. And that self-acceptance, it doesn't just create peace, It creates presence. A presence that doesn't need applause to feel worthy. A presence that doesn't shrink or shout. It simply is. And when the right people meet you, they won't be confused. They'll be relieved. Relieved to finally meet someone who reminds them, you don't have to perform to be loved. You don't have to be loud to be seen. You don't have to be famous to be felt. You just have to be real. And you, my friend, you already are. If you've ever felt like you didn't fit in, if you've ever been treated strangely, don't shrink. You're not unattractive. You're too real for fake rooms. Attraction is no longer about what's seen. It's about what's felt and what you carry. Can't be filtered, packaged, or performed. You're not beautiful in the way they understand. You're beautiful in the way their soul remembers. They don't stare because of how you look. They stare because of how you feel. Carl Jung, inspired.